Hello friends, welcome to Buried Truths, where the dust of time is swept away and history's deepest secrets rise to the surface. Let's view the video. In the annals of history, few men have risen from exile and defeat to liberate an entire nation. Robert the Bruce was not just a king, he was a warrior, forged in betrayal, rebellion, and resolve. His journey from noble birth to the savior of Scotland is a saga of grit and glory. Born on July 11, 1274, Robert came from the powerful Bruce family, descended from Norman knights and Scottish nobility. His grandfather once vied for the Scottish crown, planting the seed of ambition in Robert's bloodline. He was raised amidst political uncertainty and English interference in Scottish affairs. Robert's early education emphasized chivalry, warfare, and the politics of nobility. As a young noble, he learned Latin, swordsmanship, and diplomacy, skills that would later define his leadership. The struggle for Scottish independence simmered during his youth, especially under King Edward I's dominance. In 1296, England invaded Scotland, beginning a brutal occupation. Robert, then a young lord, initially wavered in allegiance. He pledged loyalty to Edward I to protect his lands, but maintained deep nationalist sentiments. This internal conflict would eventually erupt into open rebellion. By 1297, inspired by William Wallace's uprising, Robert began to support the Scottish cause more boldly. Though their paths were different, Wallace's passion ignited the flame of resistance in Bruce. He joined the Guardians of Scotland, navigating between loyalty and ambition. After Wallace's execution in 1305, Scotland was leaderless. The Bruce family saw a window for leadership. Robert's claim to the throne was not just by blood but by resolve. He prepared for a future where Scotland could stand independent once more, even if it meant war. Behind Robert's noble exterior was a calculating mind ready for revolution. Though untested in command, his lineage, education, and burning desire for Scottish freedom placed him on a collision course with destiny. His rise would shake the British Isles and forever change history. Robert the Bruce's path to kingship was paved with ambition, rivalry, and blood. As Scotland reeled under English domination, Robert made a daring and brutal decision that would change his fate, and the fate of an entire nation, forever. The death of William Wallace left a power vacuum in Scotland's leadership. Robert, with a strong claim to the throne, now faced his greatest obstacle, John Comyn. Both men were guardians of Scotland and rivals for the crown, but their alliance crumbled under suspicion and distrust. In early 1306, Robert met Comyn at the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. Accounts vary, but it's clear the meeting ended in murder. Enraged by Comyn's betrayal to Edward I, Robert stabbed him before the altar. It was a shocking crime, sacrilege and treason wrapped into one fatal blow. Robert fled the church, blood on his hands and a crown on his mind. Realizing there was no turning back, he moved swiftly. Just 7 weeks after Comyn's death, he was crowned King of Scots at Scone on March 25, 1306. It was a bold and dangerous declaration of defiance. The coronation was rushed and risky. Edward I, furious at Comyn's murder and Robert's rebellion, labeled him an outlaw and traitor. But Robert's supporters saw him as the rightful leader to free Scotland. Among them were powerful allies like the Bishop of St. Andrews and the Earl of Lennox. Despite the sacred stain of murder, Robert's coronation ignited the resistance. His actions shocked Europe, but they also unified fractured Scottish clans. He risked everything, lands, title, and life, to break the chains of English rule. His reign had begun, not with cheers, but with steel and sacrifice. Robert's claim to the throne was now tested by war and retribution. Edward III vowed vengeance, and the English war machine would soon turn its full wrath on Bruce. The crown he wore came with blood, and would demand even more to keep. Robert the Bruce's reign began in chaos. Days after his coronation, he faced overwhelming force from Edward I. Labeled a traitor, he became a king without a kingdom, hunted across Scotland. His crown was real, but so was the wrath of England. In June 1306, Robert's fledgling army was crushed at the Battle of Methven by English forces under Aymer de Valence. It was a devastating defeat. Robert barely escaped with his life, losing close allies and morale. Many believed his rebellion was over before it began. Pursued relentlessly, Robert fled into the Western Highlands. His wife and sisters were captured and imprisoned by Edward's men. His brothers were executed. He became an outlaw, hiding in forests and caves, surviving on the run. Scotland's king had become a shadow. During this exile, Bruce learned to fight unconventionally. Abandoning formal battles, he adopted guerrilla warfare. He struck in small bands, ambushing enemy forces and melting into the wilderness. These tactics frustrated English troops and began turning the tide. Legend says Bruce found inspiration in a spider spinning a web in a cave, failing again and again, yet never giving up. Whether myth or truth, it captured his mindset. Broken and beaten, he refused to surrender. His war became one of endurance and strategy. By 1307, Robert began scoring small victories in western Scotland. These were not grand battles, but they restored morale. His reputation as a resilient and cunning leader grew. Slowly, the people began to believe in their king again and in the cause of freedom. While Edward the Fern prepared another campaign, death claimed him in July 1307. His son, Edward II, lacked his father's resolve. Robert seized this chance. His fight had transformed from desperation to hope as the foundations of a free Scotland began to emerge from hiding. By 1307, the tide began to shift. Edward I was dead, and Scotland's spirit, once broken, stirred again. Robert the Bruce emerged from the shadows with new strength, ready to strike back. What followed was a calculated campaign to reclaim a kingdom, one victory at a time. Robert focused first on the west, targeting small garrisons and castles. He avoided direct confrontations, using swift attacks and local support. Castle by castle, region by region, he reclaimed Scottish territory. His strategy was not only military, it was psychological, reigniting Scottish pride. He issued a bold order. Any captured Scottish castles should be destroyed after taking them. Bruce didn't have the resources to hold them, but he denied them to the enemy. These ruins became symbols of defiance and clever resistance against English control. In 1308, Robert won a crucial victory at the Battle of Inverary against John Comyn's cousin. This broke the Comyn power in the northeast and brought major clans like the MacDonalds to his side. The Highlands, once divided, now rallied behind their king. Through brutal winters and harsh terrain, Bruce's army pushed north and east. His men were fiercely loyal, hardened by exile, and driven by a belief in freedom. Bruce led from the front, earning admiration not through titles, but through survival and courage. By 1310, Scotland was no longer silent. Rebellion turned into momentum. Robert's forces controlled much of the country outside the main English strongholds. His guerrilla war had evolved into an organized liberation. He was no longer a fugitive. He was a king reclaiming his realm. England's new king, Edward II, failed to match Robert's tenacity. Poor leadership and lack of unity among English lords gave Scotland breathing room. The war was far from over, but Bruce had transformed from an outlaw to a national leader poised for victory. By 1314, Robert the Bruce had reclaimed most of Scotland, but one challenge remained: the mighty English stronghold at Stirling Castle. Its siege prompted England to respond with overwhelming force. What followed at Bannockburn would become the most legendary victory in Scottish history. Edward II marched north with an army of over 15,000, including knights, archers, and infantry. Bruce's force numbered around 6,000. Outnumbered and outarmed, Robert relied not on might, but mastery of terrain tactics and morale. He chose the boggy ground near Bannockburn deliberately. On June 23, 1314, the battle began with a dramatic duel. Henry de Bohun, a young English knight, charged at Bruce. Calmly, Bruce sidestepped and shattered Bohun's skull with his axe in a single blow. This act ignited Scottish courage and stunned the English. The main battle erupted the next day. Scottish spearmen, arranged in tight formations called schiltrons, held firm against English cavalry. Mud and marsh hindered English movement. Bruce's positioning turned the landscape into a deadly trap. English knights fell in chaos and confusion. Bruce's brother Edward led a flank attack, striking the English rear. Panic spread through Edward II's ranks. The mighty English army crumbled. Many drowned in the Bannockburn or were cut down while fleeing. It was a staggering defeat for England. Edward II barely escaped, humiliated and broken. Stirling Castle surrendered. More than a military win, Bannockburn was a statement. It proved Scotland's will to be free and Bruce's right to lead. For the Scots, it was divine justice for years of occupation and slaughter. The victory united Scotland like never before. Bannockburn became legend, sung in ballads and etched into memory. Robert the Bruce was now not just a king, but a liberator. The path to independence, though still long, now had a clear and unstoppable direction. After Bannockburn, Scotland had won the battlefield, but not yet full recognition. England still refused to acknowledge Robert the Bruce as king. So Bruce turned from sword to scroll, using diplomacy to achieve what violence could not, the permanent freedom of his nation. Robert continued campaigning, invading northern England, and supporting Irish rebels against the English crown. These raids pressured Edward II, who remained unwilling to negotiate. But Bruce knew that international legitimacy would be vital for Scotland's long-term survival as an independent kingdom. In 1320, Scotland's nobles sent a revolutionary document to Pope John XIII, the Declaration of Arbroath. More than a letter, it was a manifesto of freedom. It declared Robert as the rightful king and famously stated, "It is not for glory, nor riches, nor honors that we fight, but for freedom alone." The declaration was powerful and unprecedented. It presented the Scottish cause not just as rebellion, but as a just and moral right to self-rule. It also introduced the radical idea that kings served the people, not the other way around. If Bruce betrayed that duty, they would replace him. Pope John XIII, pressured by this diplomatic masterstroke and by changing European politics, eventually lifted Robert's excommunication. Slowly, international recognition began to build. Scotland was being seen not as an English possession, but as a sovereign state with a legitimate king. In 1327, Edward II was deposed by his own people. His son Edward III took the throne and sued for peace. The Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton was signed in 1328. England finally recognized Scotland's independence and Robert as its lawful king. It was the triumph Robert the Bruce had fought for nearly 2 decades. He died a year later in 1329, his body buried at Dunfermline Abbey, and his heart sent to the Holy Land. His dream endured, Scotland, free and proud, forever changed by one warrior king. If you're passionate about uncovering the forgotten stories of our past, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying the journey so far. And stay tuned because there's so much more history waiting to be unearthed, right here on Buried Truths.